were in the arms of a state trooper. They did not move. Their face was very pale. It was very tragic.
Terror at an elementary school in Connecticut. A gunman opens fire. 20 children, 6 adults dead. The shooter dead as well. I want to welcome our viewers in the United States and around the world. I'm Wolf Blitzer in the Situation Room. We're continuing the breaking news coverage of a horrific story here in the United States. Let's bring in our national correspondent, Susan Candiati. She's on the scene. Susan, update our viewers what we know right now. What happened around 9:30 a.m. Eastern this morning at that small elementary school in Newtown, Connecticut?
It's a school, Wolf, that has the grades kindergarten to the 4th grade, a place that is supposed to be for learning and for fun for these young children, ended up being a place of pure carnage. At 9:30 or so this morning, shots rang out as at least one gunman entered that school, and that gunman is dead. As police have been telling us now, 20 children dead, 18 of them dead at the scene. And in addition to that, 6 adults are also dead, including the principal of the school. We understand that yet another adult was found dead at another location that police are not officially disclosing as of yet. And we are told that the mother of the suspected shooter, who is also dead at the scene, was also killed. She is a teacher, and she was also killed at that school, according to our law enforcement sources. In addition to this, we are also told by our sources that another person is being questioned at this time, but is not being called a suspect right now, and also that person is not being identified, Wolf. So while the school is being called secure and safe by law enforcement authorities right now, they still have a lot of investigating to do. They have not officially released the name of the shooter or the other person being questioned or the names of any of the victims at this time. It's just an awful scene, and parents found out about this, Wolf, when they received a lot of them text messages, alerts from the school that had them rushing over to the school. As a 911 call came in, police arrived on the scene. They tried to secure the scene and make sure that it was safe so that all the children were then immediately evacuated from the school and brought to a safe location nearby where they could be reunited with their parents. And also, Wolf, we know this one thing from the shooter. We understand that at least 3 weapons were found at the scene. One of them a Glock, one of them a Sig Sauer, and one of them called a .223 Bushmaster. We don't know exactly what kind of models, but we have that as well. And here's more about how it all came down from start to finish. These Connecticut parents had dropped off their kids for a typical Friday at school. Then about 9:30 in the morning, they received robocalls and text messages. Sandy Hook Elementary School was put on alert.
I just got a message saying from the superintendent that there was an unconfirmed shooting and that, everybody's in lockdown.
I was a little scared and I felt sick for it.
A gunman was firing away as teachers went into lockdown and parents rushed to the scene.
I heard screaming, and so we went to the wall and we sat down, and then a police came in. It's like, is he in here? Then he ran out, and then somebody yelled, get to a safe place.
Inside, children were hiding as a gunman fired away.
They were crying in the closet, in the closet of the art room. And eventually, they were leaving, and when they were leaving, the police made them hold hands, and the police told them to close their eyes.
Told to keep their eyes closed because a gunman was on a killing spree, killing the principal, a counselor, child after child.
On and off-duty troopers responded to the school. That included checking every door, every crack, every crevice, every portion of that school.
And again, were
taken to a nearby fire station. It was there officials realized a kindergarten class was missing. A clearly emotional Barack Obama addressed the nation as a president and as a father.
The majority of those who died today were children. Beautiful little kids between the ages of 5 and 10 years old.
They had their entire lives ahead of them. Birthdays, graduations, weddings, kids of their own.
And he insisted there had been too many tragedies to be ignored.
And we're going to have to come together and take meaningful action to prevent more tragedies like this, regardless of the politics.
Already the flags are flying at half-mast in memory of lives lost, of families torn apart. This is a country that knows how to mourn tragedies like these. Alan Fisher, Al Jazeera.
And Al Jazeera's Kath Turner is near to the scene of that shooting in Newtown in Connecticut. And there was a police press conference in the last hour or so, Kath, and they were describing how at the moment they have got the very painful task of identifying the victims.
Can't even imagine what that's going to be like here, Felicity, because for the local authorities here, the firemen, the police officers, the policemen, the governor here, all the local officials, they probably know the victims themselves, and the parents as well. This is a very personal tragedy that's come here to Newport because it's a town of only 25 to 27,000 people. It's the kind of place where you wave as you drive past in your car, you drop your kids off to school, you know the parents, you're probably friends with the parents of your children. Your children may play together after school. Identifying those tiny bodies and telling the parents that their child has been killed in this kind of tragedy, you can't even imagine what that's going to be like. This is not impersonal. This is very close to the bone for these people here. That press conference happened just a few metres from where I was, from where I'm standing now. This is a command center they put up for all the media conferences where they give us the information as officially. And as it started, I just sort of noticed a few people wandering in and trying to get the information themselves. These are not the media. You can tell who the journalists are. These are kids here. I saw a couple 10, 12, 14 years old coming together, holding each other's hands, listening in to the media conference, trying to hear what was going on. There are parents here as well, comforting each other. Everyone's just in shock here. This is a very, very unspeakable tragedy that's come here, and everyone's just looking at each other, trying to comprehend what's happening and get the information out. Everyone here is involved. There will be no one here that's left untouched by this.
And the sad fact of the matter is, Kath, is that many of the children who survived are going to be quite traumatised by this. They will have witnessed what happened in their school.
How do you even begin to treat a child who's been exposed to this? This is a country we've heard all day that has seen its fair share of mass shootings and people opening fire randomly. It's usually in schools or in malls or in areas where there's adults and people can take cover and have the maturity to react and to take cover. When you think about the fact that it's children who were forced to try and comprehend what's happening, and maybe they froze, maybe nothing went through their mind, they couldn't compute what's happening, and that's when the teachers, the adults would have kicked in and they would have tried to protect them. But now comes the hard part about telling some of these children that their classmates are dead, that a stranger walked into their classroom where they were trying to learn and killed them in cold blood. A child of 5 to 10 years old, that should not be part of their education. That should not be part of their life at this stage. Their parents, they're going to have to try and explain that to them, to try and explain how that could possibly happen to them, to the people that they know and love in their town. That is a very difficult task ahead for the counsellors here, for their parents, for everyone involved, and for the town as a whole, because you'd have to think that children that age will never forget what they've seen, what they've heard, and the fact that it has touched them so deeply and so personally on what should have been an ordinary school day.
Absolutely. Al Jazeera's Kath Turner, who's live there in Connecticut for us. Let's take you from Connecticut to Washington, D.C. and our correspondent Alan Fisher. He's been keeping track of the latest developments for us. And Alan, we had this police press conference in the last hour or so, but I have to say that the US media, of course, has actually named who they believe the gunman to be. We're not going to do that, but what more can you tell us about the gunman?
Well, let me tell you, just within the last few minutes, we're getting word that the name that has been used by the American media may be wrong. And in fact, it may be the brother of the man that has been named. And that is one reason why we're not naming this man. We're led to believe he was in his early 20s. We're told there were 2 crime scenes. One was at Hoboken in New Jersey. Now, we believe that's where the gunman lived. Certainly a car that was recovered at the scene and is currently taped off by the police has New Jersey plates. We understand that the gunman's brother was killed at that location. He then drove to Connecticut. It's about an hour-and-a-half drive to the school. There, he opened fire when he went into the office. Now, eyewitness reports say that the school principal, the headmistress, and also the school psychiatrist, someone else who is reported dead, had no hesitation in confronting the gunman, but they died. The gunman then went on his rampage and killed, as we have heard, 20 children and 4 more adults. We're hearing in the last half hour that the gunman, who was found dead at the scene, died, it's been reported by the US media, of self-inflicted wounds. We're told that 2 guns were found by his body. There's a report that he also had 2 other weapons, one a rifle. And so that would mean he had 4 guns there. But certainly the children who were coming out of the school were talking about hearing dozens and dozens. One little girl said hundreds of bangs. Those would be the shots being fired. So at the moment, the police are also carrying out searches at a number of addresses in Connecticut and New Jersey. We understand they are also interviewing the gunman's flatmates, his roommates, people he shares a house with, to see if there's any more information they can possibly glean about him. So this is going to be an ongoing investigation over the next hours and days as they try to piece together a picture of the man who has brought this terrible tragedy to this small town in Connecticut.
Yeah, it is a confusing situation, and it is early days into the investigation. Earlier, Alan, we were hearing reports that a second man had been arrested, somebody dressed in camouflage gear near the school. Do we have any update on that?
Well, there were early reports, of course, that there were 2 gunmen. That was later dismissed by the police. They believed there was only one. But what has become clear, at the same time the gunman entered the school, someone else went into the building at the same time. The police are now trying to establish whether or not they were together. A man was seen running from the building as the shooting was underway. They searched the woods near the school. This is in a wooded area. There they found a man who was wearing camouflage clothes. As the police approached, he stood up and shouted, "I didn't do it, I didn't do it." He is currently being interviewed by the police. I can tell you that, of course, on social media, this has sparked a huge debate about whether or not America should be talking about its gun laws. Barack Obama says that some serious action has to be taken despite the politics. There is moves on social media to organise in the next week or so a protest at the White House to try and demand greater gun control in the United States. They point to a number of tragedies this year. Only this week there was a shooting in a mall in Portland, Oregon, where a number of people were killed. And just a few days later, we're seeing this terrible tragedy where there are 2 crime scenes and 28 people dead, one of them the shooter. So you can see why people are concerned that this is an issue that America has to address sooner rather than later.